When silence became thunder, the unknown threat commander Zelthik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's fist, watching the stars through the massive viewing portal. For 500 years, the Vorthan hegemony had ruled this sector of the galaxy with absolute authority. Their reptilian species had conquered 47 different worlds, enslaved dozens of primitive races, and built an empire that stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Nothing had ever challenged their supremacy. Nothing had ever dared. The bridge was quiet, except for the steady hum of the ship's engines and the soft clicking sounds that Vorthans made when they were thinking. Zelthik's scaled skin was a deep purple color, which indicated he was puzzled. His tactical officer, a younger Vorthan named Kesh, approached with a datapad in his clawed hands. "Commander, we have lost all communication with the Terra Nova colony," Kesh reported, his voice carrying the typical hissing accent of their species. "The last transmission was received 72 hours ago." Zelthik turned away from the viewport, his yellow eyes narrowing. Terra Nova was a small human colony world on the edge of hegemony space. The humans there were farmers and miners, barely advanced enough to maintain basic technology. They had been conquered 15 years ago without any resistance, and had been model subjects ever since. "Equipment failure?" Zelthik asked, though he already knew the answer would be no. Human technology was primitive, but it was reliable. "Negative, sir. We sent 3 probe ships to investigate. None have returned." This was unusual. Zelthik had served in the hegemony military for over 2 centuries and had never seen an entire colony simply disappear. Pirates sometimes raided outer worlds, but they took what they could carry and left. They never had the resources to make probe ships vanish without a trace. "Prepare the investigation fleet," Zelthik ordered. "We will discover what happened to our colony." The journey to Terra Nova, the Vorthan investigation fleet, consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 36 escort vessels. Each ship was armed with plasma cannons, quantum missiles, and energy shields that could deflect almost any known weapon. The fleet was more than enough to handle any threat in this region of space. As they traveled through hyperspace toward Terra Nova, Zelthik reviewed what little information they had about the human colony. 2 million inhabitants, mostly engaged in agricultural production and mining operations. Their technology was at least 3 centuries behind Vorthan standards. They had no military forces beyond a few security guards armed with projectile weapons. Dr. Vorthok, the fleet's science officer, joined Zelthok in his private quarters to discuss possibilities. The elderly Vorthan's skin was pale grey with age, and his movements were slow but precise. "What could make an entire colony disappear?" Zelthik asked, pouring himself a glass of fermented algae wine. "Natural disaster is possible," Dr. Vorthok replied thoughtfully. "Asteroid impact, volcanic eruption, plague outbreak. But that would not explain the missing probe ships. Pirates, unlikely. No pirate group in this sector has sufficient firepower to destroy our probe ships, and pirates would have contacted us by now to negotiate ransom for the colonists." Zelthik nodded, understanding the unspoken implication. If pirates had not taken the humans, a natural disaster could not explain the probe ship's disappearance. Then they were dealing with something unknown. Arrival at Terra Nova, the investigation. Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Terra Nova system, and immediately Zelthik knew something was very wrong. His sensor officer, a nervous young Vorthan named Tlesh, was staring at his instruments with obvious confusion. "Commander, I am detecting a single vessel in orbit around Terra Nova," Tlesh reported. "The configuration is unknown. It does not match any design in our database." Zelthic moved to the sensor station and looked at the display himself. The ship was sleek and angular, much smaller than a Vorthon cruiser, but somehow more elegant. Its hull was dark red with silver accents, and it moved with a grace that seemed almost alive. "Scan it," Zelthic ordered. "I want to know everything about that vessel." "Scanning now, sir." The ship is approximately 800 meters long, with an unknown power source. I am detecting energy signatures that do not match any known technology. The hull appears to be constructed from some kind of advanced ceramic composite. Weapons, unknown, sir. The ship's design is unlike anything we have encountered. Zelthic felt a chill run through his system. In 5 centuries of expansion, the hegemony had catalogued every known starship design in the galaxy. They had detailed files on every species' technology, weapons, and capabilities. This ship was completely unknown, and that was impossible. "Open a communication channel," Zelthic commanded. First contact, the main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the unknown vessel. Zelthic was surprised to see a human female sitting in the captain's chair. She appeared to be in her 40s, with short, dark hair and intelligent brown eyes. Her uniform was clean and professional, showing none of the crude workmanship typical of human equipment. "I am Commander Zelthic of the Vorthon hegemony," he announced in his most authoritative voice. "You are in violation of hegemony space. Identify yourself immediately." The human woman looked at him with an expression that Zelthic found difficult to read. There was no fear in her eyes, which was strange. Every species they had encountered showed immediate terror when confronted by Vorthon military vessels. "I am Captain Alina Vasquez of the Terran vessel Crimson Dawn," she replied in perfect galactic standard. "I have been waiting for you, waiting for us." Zelthic was genuinely puzzled. What happened to the Terra Nova colony? "They have been evacuated to a safe location," Captain Vasquez said calmly. "The colony is no longer under hegemony control." Zelthic felt his skin flush dark purple with anger. No one spoke to Vorthon commanders with such casual disrespect. "Human, you will return our colonists immediately and surrender your vessel for inspection. Any resistance will result in your destruction." Captain Vasquez leaned forward in her chair, and Zelthic was surprised to see something that looked like pity in her expression. "Commander, I have a message for the Vorthon hegemony. You will withdraw all Vorthon forces from human space within 30 days. All human prisoners held throughout your empire will be released immediately. Any Vorthon vessel found in human territory after the deadline will be destroyed." The bridge of the Dominion's fist fell completely silent. Even the usual clicking sounds stopped as every Vorthon stared at the screen in shock. In 5 centuries, no one had ever given the hegemony an ultimatum. The very idea was so absurd that Zelthic wondered if the human was suffering from some kind of mental breakdown. "Human, you are clearly insane," Zelthic said finally. "You have one small ship against my entire fleet. Surrender now, and I might allow you to live long enough to explain your actions to hegemony interrogators." Captain Vasquez smiled, and the expression sent an unexpected chill through Zelthic's system. "Commander, I think you misunderstand the situation. You are not here to capture me. You are here to witness the beginning of a new era." The phase shift technology before Zelthic could respond. Something impossible happened. The human ship simply faded from view, becoming translucent, like a ghost. His sensor officer frantically worked at his controls, trying to understand what he was seeing. "Commander, the human vessel is becoming intangible," Tlesh reported, his voice shaking with confusion. "Our sensors can still detect it, but it is no longer solid matter. Impossible, Dr. Vorthok whispered from his position at the science station. Matter cannot simply cease to exist while maintaining energy readings. The Crimson Dawn was now completely transparent, like a hologram. Zelthic could see Terra Nova's surface through the ship's hull, but the energy readings were still there, stronger than before. All ships, attack Formation 7, Zelthic ordered. Destroy that vessel immediately. 12 heavy cruisers and 36 escort vessels moved into attack position around the ghostly human ship. Plasma cannons charged, missile tubes loaded, and energy shields activated. The combined firepower was enough to vaporize a small moon. Fire, Zelthic commanded. The space around the Crimson Dawn erupted in brilliant flashes of destructive energy. Plasma bolts, quantum missiles, and particle beams all passed harmlessly through the translucent ship. Every shot struck empty space beyond the target, creating a spectacular light show but causing no damage whatsoever. On the Crimson Dawn's bridge, Captain Vasquez watched the display with professional interest. Dr. Marcus Chen, her chief science officer, monitored the phase generator from his station. Phase shift, holding steady at 97% efficiency, Dr. Chen reported. All enemy fire is passing through our shifted matter field. Excellent work, Marcus, Alina replied. Tommy, how are our weapon systems? Engineer Tommy Rodriguez, barely 25 years old but already one of humanity's most brilliant technical minds, checked his displays with obvious excitement. All systems green, Captain. The quantum torpedoes are charged and ready. Sarah, target their command ship, Alina ordered. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, the Crimson Dawn's tactical officer, worked quickly at her station. Target locked, Captain. Firing solution calculated. The counterattack. Elena Vasquez had spent 15 years defending human colonies from Vorthon raiders. She had seen entire settlements burned, families separated, and proud people reduced to slavery. The anger she felt was cold and focused, tempered by years of military training and strategic thinking. Rematerialize the ship, she ordered. The Crimson Dawn suddenly became solid again, appearing directly behind Zelthic's flagship. At point-blank range, the human ship fired a single quantum torpedo into the Dominion's Fist's engine section. The torpedo was unlike any weapon the Vorthon had ever encountered. Instead of exploding on impact, it phased partially into the target ship's hull before detonating. The explosion occurred inside the Vorthon vessel's armor, where their shields could not protect them. The Dominion's Fist shuddered as massive explosions tore through its engine compartments. Emergency alarms screamed across the bridge as power systems failed and life support began shutting down. Damage report, Zelthic demanded, trying to maintain control as his ship died around him. Main engines destroyed, sir, his engineering officer reported. We have lost primary power and life support is failing. Estimated time until total system failure is 12 minutes. Before Zelthic could respond, the human ship vanished again, becoming intangible. It reappeared 3,000 kilometers away. In the middle of his escort formation, the systematic destruction. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The Crimson Dawn moved through the Vorthon fleet like a ghost, appearing and disappearing at will. Each time it materialized, quantum torpedoes fired with devastating accuracy. The Vorthon ships tried to adapt their tactics, but their weapons were useless against an enemy that could become intangible at will. Their shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, could not protect against torpedoes that materialized inside their hulls. One by one, Zelthic's ships were destroyed or disabled. The escort vessels were eliminated first, their smaller hulls unable to survive even a single quantum torpedo hit. The heavy cruisers lasted longer, but their size only made them easier targets. Captain Vasquez coordinated the attack with clinical precision. Years of guerrilla warfare against overwhelming odds had taught her to strike hard and fast, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to respond effectively. "Tommy, how is the phase shift generator holding up?" she asked, as they destroyed their 20th enemy vessel. "Running smooth as silk, Captain," the young engineer replied with obvious pride. "Dr. Chen's design is working perfectly." Dr. Marcus Chen smiled grimly from his science station. He had spent 10 years developing the phase shift technology, working in hidden laboratories while Vorthan occupation forces controlled the surface of his home world. The theory was based on quantum mechanics principles that the aliens had never discovered, allowing matter to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. "Sarah, what is the status of enemy forces?" Alina asked. 38 vessels destroyed, 6 disabled," Lieutenant Mitchell reported. "The remaining ships are attempting to retreat, but our speed advantage makes escape impossible." The last stand commander, Zelthic, floated in the emergency command center of his crippled flagship, watching his fleet die around him in 2 hours. The humans had accomplished what no enemy had managed in 5 centuries. They had defeated the Vorthan military completely and decisively. His communications officer, working from a backup station powered by emergency batteries, managed to establish contact with the surviving ships. "Commander, the remaining vessels are requesting permission to surrender." Zelthic felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career: complete and total defeat. The human ship was still out there, still untouchable, still capable of destroying every remaining Vorthan vessel. "Open a channel to the human captain," he ordered. Captain Vasquez appeared on the small emergency screen, her expression showing no satisfaction or cruelty. She looked like a professional soldier who had completed a necessary but unpleasant task. "Commander Zelthic," she said formally, "do you wish to discuss surrender terms? What are your demands?" Zelthic asked, knowing he had no choice but to listen. "You will return to hegemony space immediately and deliver my message to your government. All Vorthan forces will withdraw from human territory within 30 days. All human prisoners will be released. Any violation of these terms will result in the complete destruction of Vorthan military forces." Zelthic wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain the dignity of his species and his rank. But he had seen what the human ship could do. A single vessel had destroyed an entire Vorthan fleet without taking any damage. If the humans had more ships like this one, the hegemony was finished. "I will deliver your message," he said finally. "Good." Captain Vasquez replied, "Commander, I want you to understand something. This is not revenge. This is not conquest. This is simply humanity serving notice that we will no longer tolerate slavery and oppression. The age of Vorthan dominance is over." The screen went dark, leaving Zelthic alone with the wreckage of his fleet and the knowledge that everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same again, and the Vorthan hegemony would have to learn to coexist with species they had once considered inferior. As emergency shuttles carried survivors away from the battle site, the Crimson Dawn remained in orbit around Terra Nova, waiting patiently for the hegemony's response. Captain Alina Vasquez knew this was only the beginning. The real test would come when the aliens returned with their full military might, determined to crush this new human threat before it could spread. But humanity was ready. They had been preparing for this moment for 15 years, ever since the first Vorthan ship had appeared in human space. The Crimson Dawn was not alone, and the galaxy was about to discover just how dangerous humans could be when they decided to fight back. Asterisk. When giants fall, the Empire's response. Admiral Corvin stood in the War Council chambers of the hegemony's capital world, listening to Commander Zelthic's report with growing disbelief. The ancient Vorthan had served the Empire for over 4 centuries, commanding fleets that had conquered entire star systems. His scales were deep black with age, and his yellow eyes held the wisdom of countless battles. But he had never heard anything like this. "You were telling me that a single human vessel destroyed 48 of our ships?" Admiral Corvin asked, his voice carrying the authority of absolute command. Zelthic's skin flushed purple with shame as he stood before the assembled military leaders. "Yes, Admiral. The human ship possessed technology we have never encountered. It could become intangible, passing through our weapons, fire, and appearing anywhere without warning." "Hi, Chancellor." Vexter, the supreme leader of the Vorthan hegemony, leaned forward in his ceremonial chair. The ancient ruler was over 800 years old, his scales pale white with extreme age. He had built this empire from a collection of warring tribes into the galaxy's dominant power. Commander Zelthic, in 5 centuries of expansion, no species has ever successfully challenged our military supremacy, the Chancellor said slowly. "You are asking us to believe that primitive humans have developed weapons beyond our understanding." "I am reporting what I witnessed," Chancellor Zelthic replied firmly. "The human captain, Elena Buscus, demands that we withdraw from all human territory within 30 days and release all human prisoners. She claims this is only the beginning." The War Council erupted in angry clicking sounds as the assembled military leaders expressed their outrage. Admiral Corvin raised a clawed hand for silence, his mind already working on the strategic implications. "How many ships do the humans have?" Corvin asked. "Unknown, Admiral." Captain Vasquez implied that the Crimson Dawn was not alone, but I saw no other vessels. Admiral Corvin turned to face the massive star map that dominated one wall of the chamber. Red indicators showed the locations of hegemony fleets throughout the galaxy, while blue markers indicated conquered worlds and species. For 500 years, this map had shown nothing but Vorthan dominance. "Chancellor, I request permission to mobilize the Grand Armada," Corvin said formally. High Chancellor Vextar considered the request carefully. The Grand Armada was the hegemony's ultimate weapon, consisting of 500 of their most powerful warships. It had never been assembled in its full strength because no threat had ever required such overwhelming force. "Permission granted, Admiral. You will take the Grand Armada to human space and eliminate this threat permanently. Make an example of them that will discourage other species from similar rebellion." Mobilizing the Grand Armada across the Empire, warships began converging on the staging area at Nexus Station, the largest military facility in hegemony space. Massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying entire fleets, moved through hyperspace alongside heavy cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. Admiral Corvin watched the fleet assembly from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance. The massive vessel was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level continents. Around it, hundreds of other ships took their positions in perfect formation. His fleet commander, Admiral Vorthok, approached with the final deployment reports. "Sir, all vessels are in position. The Grand Armada consists of 50 dreadnoughts, 150 heavy cruisers, 200 destroyers, and 100 support vessels. Total crew complement is 2.3 million. Corvin nodded with satisfaction. No force in the galaxy could stand against such overwhelming power. Even if the humans had more ships like the Crimson Dawn, they could not possibly match the sheer scale of the Grand Armada. What is our intelligence on human military capabilities? Corvin asked. Very limited, sir. Our spy network's report increased. Industrial activity on several human worlds, but no indication of major fleet construction. Their largest vessels appear to be cargo ships and mining barges. The Crimson Dawn remains the only confirmed military vessel. 1 ship against 500, Corvin mused. Even with advanced technology, they cannot overcome such numerical superiority. But as the Grand Armada prepared to depart for human space, long-range sensors detected something that made Admiral Corvin reconsider his assumptions. 3 unknown vessels had appeared at the edge of hegemony territory, moving steadily toward major military installations. The human fleet. Revealed Captain Alina Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Crimson Dawn, watching the tactical display that showed the positions of her sister ships. The Solar Storm, commanded by Captain James Park, was approaching the hegemony's main shipyard at Corellis Prime. The Stellar Forge, under Captain Amara Okafor's command, was moving toward the military academy at Zentara Station. Alina Weir, receiving status reports from James and Amara, reported Commander Lisa Wong, her second in command. Both ships are in position and ready to begin operations. Alina nodded, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders. For 15 years, humanity had worked in secret to develop the technology and tactics needed to challenge the Vorthon Empire. The phase shift drives, quantum torpedoes, and advanced hull materials had all been created by human scientists working in hidden facilities throughout occupied space. Dr. Chen, how are our systems performing? She asked. Dr. Marcus Chen looked up from his science station with obvious pride. All ships are operating at peak efficiency, Captain. The phase shift. Generators are synchronized and ready for coordinated attacks. Engineer Tommy Rodriguez grinned from his position at the engineering console. Captain, I've been monitoring hegemony communications. They're mobilizing everything they have. It looks like they're planning to throw their entire fleet at us. Good. Alina replied calmly. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell studied her tactical displays with professional interest. Captain, I'm detecting massive fleet movements throughout hegemony space. It appears they're assembling at Nexus Station. Elena smiled grimly. The response was exactly what human strategists had predicted. The aliens were so accustomed to overwhelming numerical superiority that they could not conceive of any other approach to warfare. Sarah signaled the Solar Storm and Stellar Forge. Begin. Phase 1 operations. The coordinated strike Captain James Park received the signal aboard the Solar Storm as his ship approached Corellis Prime, the hegemony's largest military shipyard. The facility was a massive industrial complex that could build dozens of warships simultaneously, protected by 40 battle stations and 3 defensive fleets. All stations, this is the captain, James announced over the ship's communication system. We are beginning our attack run. Remember, our goal is to cripple their military production, not to kill unnecessarily. The Solar Storm activated its phase shift drive and became translucent. Passing harmlessly through the defensive perimeter, the Vorthon defenders opened fire with everything they had, but their weapons struck empty space, materializing inside the shipyard complex itself. The The solar storm fired quantum torpedoes at key industrial targets. Dry docks, manufacturing facilities, and construction equipment exploded in brilliant flashes as the exotic weapons phased through protective barriers. Simultaneously, Captain Amara Okafor's Stellar Forge was conducting a similar attack at Zen Station. The military academy was the training ground for Vorthon officers, and its destruction would cripple their ability to replace combat losses. The coordinated strikes were devastating in their precision. Within 2 hours, the hegemony had lost its 2 most important military installations, along with hundreds of ships under construction and thousands of personnel. The Grand Armada Advance's Admiral Corvin received reports of the attacks while the Grand Armada was still in hyperspace, en route to human territory. The scope of the human offensive was far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. 3 ships, he said to Admiral Vorthok. 3 human vessels have crippled our military infrastructure. Sir, intelligence reports suggest the humans may have additional ships we have not detected, Vorthok replied nervously. Their industrial capacity was always underestimated. Corvin felt a chill of uncertainty that he had never experienced in 4 centuries of military service. The humans were not behaving like any enemy the hegemony had ever faced. Instead of massing their forces for a traditional battle, they were striking at strategic targets with surgical precision. Order all remaining installations to maximum alert status, Corvin commanded. Deploy additional defensive fleets to protect critical facilities. But even as he gave the orders, Corvin knew it was too late. The humans had already demonstrated that traditional defenses were useless against their phase shift technology. Any target they chose to attack would be destroyed, regardless of how many ships protected it. The Battle of Nexus Station, the Grand Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human territory, expecting to find a desperate enemy fleet waiting to defend their home worlds. Instead, they found empty space and a single communication beacon broadcasting a message from Captain Elena Vasquez. Admiral Corvin, of the Vorthon hegemony, Elena's recorded voice said calmly, "You have assembled an impressive fleet. I hope you are prepared to lose it." Before Corvin could respond, 3 human ships materialized around his formation. The Crimson Dawn, Solar Storm, and Stellar Forge appeared simultaneously, their phase shift drives allowing them to bypass the Grand Armada's defensive perimeter completely. All ships, attack formation Delta, Corvin ordered. Destroy the human vessels immediately. 500 Vorthon warships opened fire at once, creating a storm of energy that lit up the entire system. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and quantum missiles filled the space where the human ships had been floating. But the 3 vessels had already phased into intangibility, allowing the massive barrage to pass harmlessly through their hulls. The weapons fire continued into space, creating a spectacular display that accomplished nothing. "Impossible," Admiral Vorthok whispered. "How can they maintain phase coherence with so many ships?" Dr. Chen had solved that problem years ago by linking the phase shift generators through quantum entanglement, allowing multiple ships to synchronize their dimensional states. It was technology that the Vorthons could not even comprehend, much less counter. The human counterattack, Elena Vasquez coordinated the counterattack from the Crimson Dawn's bridge, watching as her tactical display showed the massive enemy formation spread out across thousands of kilometers of space. "James, Amara, begin Pattern 7, she ordered through the quantum communication link. The 3 human ships materialized in different locations within the Grand Armada's formation, each one targeting the largest enemy vessels. Quantum torpedoes fired continuously, each one programmed to phase through shields and armor before detonating inside enemy hulls. Captain James Park guided the Solar Storm through a formation of dreadnoughts, his weapons systematically destroying the massive ship's critical systems. The quantum torpedoes were incredibly efficient, requiring only 1 or 2 hits to cripple even the largest vessels. Captain Amara Okafor took the Stellar Forge against the heavy cruisers, her tactical officer picking targets with deadly precision. Each torpedo hit caused catastrophic damage, turning proud warships into drifting hulks. Within seconds, Alina kept the Crimson Dawn moving constantly, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to coordinate an effective response. Her years of guerrilla warfare experience served her well as she struck at command ships and communication centers. The tide turns. Admiral Corvin watched his grand armada disintegrate around him, unable to comprehend how 3 ships could defeat 500. His tactical officers reported losses that seemed impossible. 50 ships destroyed in the first hour, with no damage inflicted on the enemy. "Sir, multiple ship commanders are requesting permission to withdraw," Admiral Vorthok reported, his voice shaking with fear. "Negative," Corvin replied firmly. "We will not retreat from inferior opponents." But even as he spoke, Corvin knew the battle was lost. The human ships moved like ghosts through his formation, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons ignored every defensive system the hegemony had developed over 5 centuries of conquest. The eternal dominance shuddered as quantum torpedoes struck its hull, phasing through the massive ship's armor and exploding deep within its structure. Emergency alarms screamed across the bridge as critical systems failed one by one. "Admiral, we have lost main power and life support is failing," his engineering officer reported. "Recommend immediate evacuation." Corvin felt the weight of absolute defeat settle on his shoulders. In 4 centuries of military service, he had never retreated from any enemy, but continuing this battle would only result in the complete destruction of his fleet with no strategic gain. "All ships, withdraw to secondary positions," he ordered reluctantly. The final confrontation, as the surviving Vorthan ships began their retreat, Captain Alina Vasquez made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of allowing the defeated fleet to escape, she ordered her ships to pursue Admiral Corvin's flagship. The 3 human vessels appeared around the Eternal Dominance, trapping the massive dreadnought between them. Alina opened a communication channel to the Vorthan admiral, her expression showing no mercy for the species that had enslaved her people. "Admiral Corvin," she said calmly, "I believe it is time for you to listen." Corvin appeared on her main screen, his ancient features showing defeat and confusion. "Human, you have won this battle. What more do you want?" "I want you to understand that this is not a battle, Admiral. This is a message. The Vorthan hegemony's age of conquest is over. You will withdraw from all human territory, release all human prisoners, and never again attack any human world. And if we refuse..." Alina gestured to the tactical display showing the wreckage of the Grand Armada floating around them. "Then we will visit every Vorthan world in the galaxy and deliver the same message we delivered here. Your choice, Admiral."